So we're live. So hi Charles, welcome to the live stream. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. So we both share the same name, Charles. Charles.
Might be a little confusing.
Yeah, it might be, but it's exciting to meet someone else that's named Charles. There are a lot of Charleses in history, and I think that name goes with some pretty great people that have done pretty great stuff. Charles Dickens, Charles Darwin's, which other Charles? There's so many other Charles that have done great things, and I believe that we're on the
Not to
path of
mention
doing
the
great things
kings.
as well.
Right.
Yeah. So today I wanted to explore with you a race. I mean, your new book is called Race Crazy, and there is a reason why you titled that book Race Crazy. Because as an outsider, when I look at America, one of the things that I see that dominates the conversation around America is race and racism. If you look at the politics, if you look at the news and all that, and anyone who is not on ground, who sees that sort of interaction, thinks that America is obsessed with race. America is obsessed with racism. So I wanted to understand what exactly is the driving force behind such an obsession with race. But before we go into that conversation, just introduce yourself a little bit. I could have done that introduction, but I think you would do a better job of introducing yourself to us. So just a brief introduction of yourself, then we can go into the meat of the discussion.
Oh, okay. Self introduction. I got to make sure that I keep it humble and don't go too long. So, I am Charles Love. I'm a host of a radio show, The Charles Love Show, co host of the podcast Cut the Bull with Shamika Michelle and Wilfred
Can you hear me,
Riley.
Charles?
Yes. Can you hear me? You can't hear me?
Hello.
That's not good. I can hear you just fine. Your picture's frozen, but I can hear you. Um, should I go on with my intro? How about now? You're moving again. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, the host of the
I can
Charles
hear you
Love
now.
Show, co-host of Cut the Bull, author of 3 books: Logic, We Want Equality, and the new one, Race Crazy. And am I losing you? Hope you can still hear me. I guess you'll say if not. And I write on race and the culture a lot, so that's pretty much enough of a background. We can get into other stuff as we talk about the book. I feel like I'm alone now.
So sorry about that. I was having some little difficulties with the network here. Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, so let's go. Sorry about the hitches. So we can continue with introductions. Let's go with introductions.
Oh, I didn't know whether you can hear me or not, but so, Charles Love, host of the Charles Love Show, co-host of the Cut the Bull podcast with Shamika Michelle and Wilfred Riley, author of Logic, We Want Equality, and the latest book, Race Crazy. And I write a lot on the culture and race. So we can get into any particulars you want to.
All right. So when I look at the discourse around race in America, I think that it's sort of evoked unnecessarily, or it's been overemphasized, it's been overused, it's been stretched to its limits. Am I correct in that analysis that race is being used unnecessarily and over exaggerated in America?
Oh, definitely. I mean, There's no question about that. Regardless of what people believe, they don't question that. The question is whether it's warranted or whether it's helpful. That's all that really matters. Nobody will argue that it's not. We don't talk about it enough. That, I mean, that would be rare to hear people say that. Can I comment? I don't think I can comment.
Hey Charles, I'll just a few minutes. Let me change my internet connection.
Okay. I was trying to
This
see,
one
I
is
can see
messing
the
up.
comments and I saw
Yeah.
Mark. Thank you for subscribing. But I was going to try to chat with him while you were doing that, but I don't think I can. The private chat works, but I
Oh,
can't reply to
go
the
ahead.
comment.
Go ahead. If you
I'll try. Yeah.
or you can't reply to them, try if you can. So as
I'm
I'll
trying to.
internet
I'm
connection.
coming, Mark. I'm coming. I'm trying to reply. Ask me a question. Hey, Sheena. Hmm.
Yeah. Can you answer them? Can you
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'll just have to respond because they can hear me. So Mark is asking about some of the guests we had on Cut the
okay.
Bull. It's funny you mentioned that, Mark. Mark is asking, do I think that there's a bubble or do we reach beyond just right leaning crowd? So I shifted my focus about a year ago and made it primarily center left and center right people. The problem is, and when we talked at the beginning, Will and Shamika and I, we are all conservatives, but none of us are Republicans. And I mean, we didn't plan that. That's just how it happened. And with my new approach, the goal was to try to get as many liberals on the show as possible. And it could change, but we decided at the beginning we weren't going to get any hard lefts because we didn't want the show to be an argument. But we wanted liberals who differ with us on some things and agree on some things, because we're trying to reach them to get them to understand whatever the politics of things are. The far left shouldn't even be associated with them. But it's hard to get liberals on the show. But we've had a few, if you think about it. I mean, I know some of the more prominent people were conservatives, but we had Batya Unga Sargon, we had Maud Marin, we had, I mean, our first three guests um, were Clifton Duncan, Xavier Bonilla, and David Bernstein from the Institute of Liberal Values. And then we had Angel Eduardo. None of them would consider themselves conservatives. So that was the goal. So if we can get more of them, you talk about changing minds. It's part of the reason why I try not to talk. You don't know somebody's heart left until you talk to them. But once I realize they're on the left, I stop talking to them because what's the point, right? I'm never going to convince them, so I don't waste my time. I just say, okay, and all white people are racist and all black people are oppressed. I just say, okay, and I move on because I'm not going to waste my energy with them. But if I can get to enough liberals, I think the message definitely resonates because I say like
But
a Bill
that's
Maher. Bill Maher is completely liberal. And he doesn't agree with conservatives on most things, but he likes free speech, and he thinks that canceling people is bad. And he's like, I've been a liberal my whole life. I'll be damned if you're going to call me a racist. So those are the type of liberals we need to try to reach. You ready, Charles? Because I can
so
keep rambling.
yeah. I'm ready. Yeah,
All right.
I'm ready. So, very, very sorry for this wacky internet connection today. It's never happened like this before. I don't know why it's happening now.
They're trying to shut me down because
So,
I got a really strong message.
it's not going to work. It's not going to work. The message
No,
is
it's
going to
not.
be spread, and it's going to go as far as it can go. So, my first question is, do you think that race is overemphasized in America? Do you think it's overflogged, it's overused, it's more like a broken tape where it is invoked, and even in situations where it should not be invoked?
Right. I think it does. Some of them are pushing it. They have a reason why they're doing it. I mean, I don't even think it's one, to be fair. A lot of people on the right call those on the left grifters. There are definitely a few of those, but I don't think it's the majority of them. Some of them are doing it for money. Some are doing it for fame. Some because they truly believe it. Some because they're trying to help. Some because they don't know any better. Whatever the reason is. What I think the problem is, too many people in the center are quiet, and too many people on the right don't ask the right questions. I don't get in debates about how racist the country is or what happened in history unless they want to bring something up and they're saying things like the 1619 project that are totally wrong and you have to correct them. My simple question is just, okay, whatever you just said, all whites are racist, the system set up against us, this country was never forced, whatever you want to say. Okay, that's true. Now what? You've been here hundreds of years. You're 50 years past the civil rights movement. You're in the country. You're not leaving. So what do? If I give you your argument that the country is still racist against blacks, but you agree with me that those other three things are true. You're not leaving. You've been here for years. You're part of the culture. So what are you going to do? You're going to talk about it every year? That's not going to change anything. What are you going to do to actually change, to create better outcomes? And people don't really ask that question because if you ask them that question, they're kind of stuck because they can either say, well, I'm going to talk about race more. Okay, that's not going to help. We already know that's not going to help. What else you got? As far as to this point, the people I've talked to, they don't have anything else. So you're never going to solve the problem, even if you're right about what the problem is. Now, many of us debate whether that's the core problem, but even if we say that that is the problem, the core problem in the black community is racism. You're not going to solve it by saying racism because you can't fix the white people. You can't deport them all. They're not going anywhere. So what are you going to do? And I haven't found anyone yet to answer that question. So definitely they talk about it too much. I mean, I think most of the time, I think people try to argue with me, but I mean, it's really nothing to argue about because I'm giving you your argument. What you're saying, though, is that I should be hyper focused on it. And I'm saying that it won't solve the problem. What else you got? And they just say, well, you just don't understand that there's racism. But I conceded the point, and you're still trying to debate it with me, but I conceded it. Every white person's racist. Now, how do we get higher math and reading scores in the black community? The answer to that question, I asked the question, the answer to that question can't be, well, racism. What do you mean? More of it? Less of it? Fixing it? So they're so hyper focused on it. And that's what I think the problem is. I don't mind that they're focused on it. I don't mind that they say that's one of the many problems that we face that we need to address. But they at least I can't get in their heads and say what they believe, but they talk about it as if it is this single problem. And if it went away, we would have no education problems, no opportunity problems, no wealth gap, no jobs, no crime. All that would go away if racism went away. But the proof that that's not true is that all those problems, I agree to a lesser extent, but all those problems exist in the white community. They haven't seemed to get rid of poverty and crime and unemployment and rape and being beat academically by other countries. That still happens. So if they don't live in the perfect life, there's no homeless white people. I mean, that'd be crazy. Of course there are. So if this whiteness that you say the country's centered around isn't making their lives perfect, what makes you think it'll make Black life perfect?
So it seems to me that the people who are pushing this narrative, they haven't actually thought through their positions. They might just be parroting certain points where that they hear from the media, that they hear from the families, that they hear from around them. They're just parroting these points, and they haven't had a very deep thought about what it means or what solutions they are ready to prefer. I mean, if you're saying it's racism, then what are your solutions barring racism? If you take the racism away, is it going to solve all your problems? And from what you said, it seems like they don't have an answer to that. But my question is, has the conversation always been like this? If not, where did this narrative come from and when did it start?
Well, I think it's always been there. That's another thing. If you follow me and my very selective tweets and the things that I write, that's kind of what I try to point out, because my message, even though, so really most of what I do and say is very specifically targeted, which is why you will never see me really tweet about Rittenhouse or Ahmaud Arbery or George Floyd and all that stuff, because those things are all bad, but they're isolated incidents. I mean, there's always going to be crime. You don't tweet about others. I don't tweet about or write about black on black crime and those things. What I say was something happened recently, and I commented on it. Oh, I've been using this example. So the BLM guy in New York met with the incoming mayor of New York, and he had his list of demands. He came out after the meeting, said the meeting didn't go well. And so he said that there may be violence if they don't get their way. And most of the people left and right who wrote about it and commented on it all had the same different beliefs on it, but they were all talking about the same thing. They were talking about his comments and whether they were incendiary or whether they were bad or whether he meant them or not, and whether this was good or bad for the movement, all this kind of stuff. I said, no, you're missing the point. And it's tied to your question, because I said radicals have always been there. There's always been violent people. All that stuff is not new. What's different is, in the past, most of us, regardless of our politics or our beliefs, we dismissed the radicals. Even if we were on their side, he's a radical leftist and I'm a liberal, but I dismiss the radicals. If he's a radical on the right, I dismiss him. So my question when I saw this news story was, why did the incoming mayor of the largest city in the country take a meeting with a guy who went on national TV a few months ago and said, we'll burn the whole country down? See, in the past, that guy would never get a meeting with the mayor of New York. BLM would never. Now, they complained about their sit down as an organization with Biden, and they were disappointed with the responses they got against Biden. And people on their side would say, yeah, they should have gotten more because we supported them. People on the right was like, aha, you didn't get what you wanted. I was thinking, why are they getting a sit down with the mayor, with the president of the United States? So it's kind of like that. The conversation has always been there, but the question is, why are people taking them seriously? So when they say, you know what, police officers disproportionately mistreat blacks, which I agree with, but then they go further, but they don't say, more likely to pull a gun, push them against a car, follow them. They say, shoot them, right? They are hunting them down, which most people, left or right, don't believe. But if we give them their argument and say, yes, I think police leave the precinct and say, find me a black person to shoot, what's the solution? And they say, defund the police. Now, I'm sure there's always been an anti-police, anti-militant, authoritarian strain in the country, but most normative people would just brush it off. Today, people are donating to them. So it's not their beliefs and their conversation that's changed, right? That's been there forever. I mean, I was talking to, we were doing an interview with Brian Kilmeade, and he has a book about Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, and he mentions them. And I always talk about this, and I think I put out a tweet saying that William Lloyd Garrison was the first anti-racist because he hated slavery. He was all out against it. He was fighting. He meets Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass is a former slave. He's telling his story. They bring him under his paper, and they're like this. They're tight. And they fell out because they both, one of the things they agree with beyond hating slavery is that slavery was evil. It was part of the country, and it's in the DNA, like the 1619 Project of America. We need to just tear up that Constitution. But as Frederick Douglass learned to read and he evolved and he studied and he met people, he changed his view. And he was like, we need to change a lot of things, but the Constitution is perfect the way it is. It doesn't say anything about slavery. And we could change the country today and end slavery and never have to change the Constitution. Well, William Lloyd Garrison, keep in mind, Garrison's white, Frederick's black, and a former slave, said that he was a traitor because he liked the country, and he was like, how dare you say positive things about this country? And he stopped speaking to him. He was like, dude, I can't talk to you anymore because you're part of the problem. If you don't want to tear up the Constitution, you're as bad as a slaveholder. Get out of here. To the man who escaped slavery, right? So this conversation isn't new. I mean, everybody for a while now, he's gone into out of favor, and they want to tear stuff down. But for a while in the black community, Lincoln was great. Lincoln was the guy who freed the slaves. But most abolitionists hated Lincoln. They said he was moving too slow, right? It's like, come on, you just need to just sign an executive order and end this right way. It's like, it's a complicated political thing. I can't do that. So, I mean, you're talking 1860s at that point. So this stuff isn't new. It's the only thing that really changes is the way we react to it. And now we're in a situation where we're giving crazy people the keys to the government, and we're shocked by the response.
And it makes a lot of sense for you to say that these things they've always existed. That these extreme ideas, extreme people have always existed. But the question is, what changed that they are now being tolerated to the extent that they are dominating the conversation, to the extent that they are having so much political influence and power that they can, threaten violence if they do not have their way. So that's my question, actually. What changed? Right. What really changed?
Well, it wasn't. It seems like it's an instance. It was an overnight change that took 10 years, really. Part of it, you got to give blame to the Republicans. The Republicans abdicated their responsibility. We can say that they're, some people say they're racist or whatever. They're people like anybody else. Some are, some aren't. Their policies aren't. That's not the case. But what they did do is make a calculated and I think flawed decision that elections cost a lot of money. There's a cost-benefit analysis of where we spend this money. Blacks have gotten to the point for decades, since the late 60s, that they vote majority for Democrat, regardless of who the candidate is. I know I'm a better candidate. They won't even give me the time of day. So why waste their money? But what they didn't realize they were doing was that they were cutting off some potential voters, even though a small percentage, who probably would have considered them. But they're like, well, you're not asking for my vote. You're not coming here. I'm not going to consider you. But what's worse is they allowed Democrats to speak on their behalf. So you allow the Democrats to paint a picture of what Republicans believe, and they weren't there to dispute it. So people just, over a period of time, just believe all white people are only for the rich. Never true. All these Republicans are just, they're just trying to make money. They're against black people, all this stuff. They paint this narrative, people believe it. So they go away. They don't fight for the votes. Then they have school problems. They see the problems kind of emerging in the school system. And instead of fixing them, they move to the suburbs and they take the kids out of school and they, support school choice and think that's going to solve the problem. So you had that one angle, the fact that the Republicans stopped fighting so the Democrats didn't have to do anything. And then you got to be honest, it's white guilt. There's no reason. You just sit this stuff and it's fascinating how, and I do tweet out stuff like this because it's just their hypocrisy and their insanity is so funny. All these people, these companies, these corporations, these executives, these athletes, all these people, this needs to change. I'm going to put pronouns in my description. The system is racist, all this stuff. Now, it's not about whether it's true or not and whether I disagree with it and we can have a debate about that. This isn't that, though. This is just a simple question because I'm a logical guy. So the country's racist. So you need pronouns. So gays are being treated unfairly. Yet you didn't really start talking about it until George Floyd died. So before George Floyd died, you were okay with racism? Everything was cool? So he dies and you want Juneteenth to be a holiday. I don't have a problem with Juneteenth being a holiday. I have a problem with how it became a holiday, right? This like, whatever you want. And really for the corporations, let's be honest, it was like a ransom payoff. It was like, we see the country burning. They're attacking these major corporations. If we say and do the right things and put your BLM logo on our screen, it's like painting the blood on the door, right? Will you pass by our door? We need a Passover. That's what they were hoping for. It was a radical BLM Passover, right? So we did our part. We put your logo up. We said we're going to support. We wrote you a check. When you burn the next city BLM, when Hawk Newsom says there'll be violence and we're going to take to the streets, can you give us a pass and remember how sweet we were? But does it ever work? They have a strong anti-Christian sentiment, yet somehow the CEO of Chick-fil-A thought that I could be open and honest about my Christianity, close on Sundays, but if I just wash a couple black feet, they'll like me. Mitt Romney thought if I marched in a BLM rally, I'll look like I'm down for the people too. No, they still hate Mitt Romney. You don't get to do that when you're a Christian or when you're a Republican. It doesn't matter. They won't like you. So they didn't understand. They thought that if they played along, that things would be better. So, all it does is, I always joked at the beginning that these people had these radical views, and it's like, let's try some things. So they threw some stuff out there, and then they got it. And then they kind of looked around and like, what do we do now? They said, yes, you didn't say they were going to say yes. What do we do? I don't know. Ask for more stuff. All right. We want a holiday. Okay. Oh my God. We got that too. Keep asking for stuff. No more police. Give us $20 million. And they just started. I mean, they don't have a plan. You talked about solutions. They don't have solutions. It's just, let's just ask for stuff and they'll give it to us. I mean, you can prove the fact in that Kendi talks in circles and they give him $20,000 to speak via Zoom, right? It doesn't matter how racist the country to be. The man can get on there and say, well, the problem is racism. Racism is bad. It is one of the worst things ever. No, what we need to end racism is more racism, but different racism. And if we have different racism and we put the racism in the ring with the racism and the two racism, so they fight each other and the good racism wins, then we win. And that's what we need to do. And people are like, yeah, no, it sounds good. And they just clap and then, here's your check. I mean, what he's saying makes no sense. And when he gets called on it, he's just like, look at these people trying to call me out for saying this. It doesn't make sense. Trying to act like what I said doesn't make sense. And then he moves on. He doesn't defend it because there's no defense. And then he moves on and they just go along with him. So, of course, it's crazy. But he gets paid because there's white guilt saying, well, we write him a check. We'll be the good white people, which is funny because according to the extremes, there are no good white people. Ask Robin DiAngelo.
Wow, don't even get me started with Kendi because one of the first videos I've done on this channel was saying that Glenn Lowry was right that Ibrahim Kendi is a lightweight, because I saw an interview where he defined racism with racism and it just blew my mind. I was like, this is I've never seen a worse secular definition in my life. And I thought that, okay, one of the critique I had was that I hadn't read the book. I was just reacting to him based off of the video I saw. But I did actually start reading the book, and the definition were worse in the book than in the video. And I'm like, wow. I was almost feeling, or maybe I had misrepresented him. Now I feel like I was justified in making that video that he actually is a lightweight. Now, your answer to my question actually ties to the second question, the other question I wanted to ask you, which is you sort of have indicted the progressive left in this race craziness in all these things that's going on. And I wanted to ask, are you going to just put the blame squarely on the feet of the progressive left? But from your answer, you've been able to tell me that it even started from the Republicans simply giving up on black people. They left a gaping hole, and somehow they allowed the Democrats to change the narrative, or the Democrats to shape the narrative such that they painted Republicans as the evil guys, conservatives as the evil guys, and you're just stuck with the black people are just stuck with one party where they can now make so much demands.
But keep in mind though, it's not only them. I said this where it started, but the reason I focus most of what I do at people who are center left and in the center is because the liberals and the Democrats have their blame too, because this is I don't usually say Democrat Republican because it's not a political thing. This is a cultural thing. But those people who consider themselves true liberals that tend to vote Democrat, but they're not crazy. They're to blame too, right? Because as much as they fawn all over the alt-right, whatever that is, and they try to tie it to the right, they do nothing about the fact that they're tied to this far left wing, right? So if you're a normative Democrat, I'm a true liberal. I vote Democrat most of the time because I disagree with Republican policies, but I don't think they're all evil or whatever. I'm pro-capitalist. I'm pro-free speech, Second Amendment, normative. Why would you let the squad speak for you? People forget. And I say this, a part of the problem is so many people. And then there's a third group of people. The most largest number of people is the 200 million people who don't pay attention at all. Because I say to people, that we focus on this political thing. The reason I prove it's not political is like there's 435 congressmen. Most of them, I say, how many congressmen? They don't know. So I tell them how many. I say, how many do you know? No, not you. How many would you say the average people know? And they could probably name 10, 15, 20. It's the same 20. It's the same 10 Democrats and 6 Republicans. That's all they know, right? So they don't have any more power based on, obviously, the committees they're on than all the other 400 and change, 420. But those are the ones we focus on. So the country is dictated by what Ted Cruz or he's in the Senate, but what those Kevin McCarthy and what AOC says, right? Forget about the people in Idaho, Wyoming, the rest of the California congressmen, Illinois, North Carolina. No, just those 2 or 3. It makes no sense. But so the media follows those 4, 5, 6 people around. They say crazy stuff. And because they don't want to lose their political positions, and this is to them, everything is a political fight, the Democrats will say, I don't like ALC, but we need to stay quiet because we can't afford to lose that seat. Or I don't like this Republican, but we need to stay quiet because we can't afford to lose that seat. So we lose the culture because the political people are afraid to just say, well, that's just wrong. I can't tie myself and I can't have my party, the Democrat Party, tie itself to an organization who's openly anti-capitalist. Even though, let's be real, they're not anti-capitalist. Everybody mocked Patrisse Cullors for buying homes and all this other stuff. And look, she says she's a Marxist. She buy a home. No. She said she's a Marxist, but look at their actions. They're not Marxists. Kendi, if Kendi were anti-capitalism, he would not charge $20,000 for a Zoom speech. It would be free, or he'd ask for money and he'd donate it. They're not anti-capitalists. They don't like the capitalists they don't like. I tweeted something yesterday about, they're anti-capitalist except for Netflix and the New York Times and Apple and Tesla and all the people that they like, and Jeff Bezos and this person and this person. So, because if you an environmentalist and you're supporting wind farms, I'm not getting into a climate change fight, but what I will say is that company with the wind farms is a capitalist company. The guy who's selling, what else is it? The electric cars, capitalist country. They're not donating these cars, capitalist company. So they're not anti-capitalist. Netflix, Hollywood, Moderna, and Pfizer, they're capitalists. They're not saying, well, screw the vaccine, not because I'm anti-vaccine and not because I'm on the right. I don't like those people, but I hate corporations. So somebody should make a batch in their basement, and then the government should take it from them, and then the government should own the vaccine. Nobody's saying that because they don't believe it. It's silly. I mean, but you can't really call them out because they're so good at messaging, and the media helps them. Another corporation. So I'm like, I don't even get caught up in that debate. I don't make fun of Patrisse Cullors. I'm not shocked she bought 4 houses. She's not an anti-capitalist. They're lying. But I do wonder why people would give them money. If you are an executive at Nike, why would you give money to an organization who openly says we're anti-capitalist? So you're either naive or you're stupid.
So is this a normalization of stupidity, or is it that these people are very sinister and they know how to work the system?
Both, because the BLM people are sinister and know how to work the system, but the guy at the C-suite executive just wants his business to be left alone. Like I said, they're putting a sign out there saying, "Don't attack me. I'm one of the good people." I don't think the country and these companies wouldn't survive and wouldn't be as successful as they are if they were truly sinister and have the BLM beliefs. Like you could not run, these retail shops or these car manufacturers successfully if you truly believe. Because think about it, if you truly believe the Kendi, what's her name, D'Angelo, Hannah Jones worldview, you would just be hiring black people whether they were qualified or not. You would be your boardroom would be full of BIPOC trans people, regardless of if they were best or not. You would step down. I mean, we've seen 1 or 2 people who do it. I'm going to step down and make one way for for a woman. But all the corporations would be doing it, right? Why? Well, here's a question: why are all these woke corporations, and Netflix, who had their the BLM collection of movies? You can pick a BLM selected movie. Nike, who pushed for Juneteenth before Juneteenth, we're going to give all our employees Juneteenth off. You know, the white ones, because most of them are white. Why are all these CEOs still white? It's been a year and a half. How long does it take to step down and put a black person in? I mean, Jack Dorsey just stepped down. I mean, their new CEO is a African American, right? Oh no, he's not.
Is it female? Is
Of
it
course he's
female?
not. I was kidding. Of course he's not. I was kidding. That's the point. If they really believed it, they would be doing it. Of course they don't believe it. And even if they did, how long would it be before that company was, you know, crushed by its competition because they didn't compete, because they didn't focus on what was best for the company? They don't mean it. No, I think they're just going along because they think that they will avoid the mob, which, as we can see, the mob comes for everyone.
So basically, they are just trying to survive in a business environment. So it's all tactical. It's a business strategy for them. They have to play with the side that they think has the most power at this point, so that they don't get crushed.
Well, here's another example, because race is so toxic. Let's talk gender. There's an equal number of boys and girls being born, growing up, somewhere around, it's pretty close, 50-50. And through the years, as they get older, whatever reason, we're not even talking about the cause. We just know this is fact. We can debate the reasons why, but we know by the time they get 35, much larger number of men and women have been killed or have killed, so they're in prison. They have OD'd on drugs. They're drug dealers. They didn't go to college. They dropped out. If they went to college, they didn't go to grad school. Or if they went to grad school, they didn't get a PhD, right? They are less likely to, the men will be more likely to commit suicide. All these other things to just, change that number. They start off here. And so the women, common sense would say, through attrition, you will have more executives, managers, and things, and business owners, because they just tend to be doing better. So why the big push? Why the girls who code and Black Girl Magic, and we need to give scholarships specifically to women, and Oxford saying we need to lower the math standards so more women can get in? Why we need more women scientists? Why that push? I mean, pushing it when they're young to get them interested in it is a good thing, right? Then we don't have enough women who are mathematicians. Let's do a push to make it fun for women, make it something they want to, girls something they want to do. That's fine. But this extreme, like Congress trying to pass laws to make things even because women are treated unfairly. Why that? Why do that? Why run it? I remember a couple of years ago, the people on the right got upset at Audi because they had a commercial about how girls can do this, and they were focusing on women, how women are mistreated, and we're going to sell our cars to girls, and we want the next engineers and designers of our cars to be women or something like that. But why that push? I mean, the data doesn't show that women are falling behind men. In fact, they're saying that men are falling behind women. But so, if you were being fair, equality, not equity, you would be given in 2021, you would be given a boost to men, not women. So why women? Because the narrative plays that way, because the loudest noise are on that side, because they're only looking at the C-suite and they see more men, and they ignore that large army of women that are marching toward them, that are more educated, more successful, more driven, starting more businesses, and less likely to fall to the pitfalls that all these men are falling to. But it doesn't matter. Let's focus on women. So do you think that'll change in 5 years when those old CEOs start to retire and women take their place, and when more women are opening businesses, and we get to see the results of what's being fed into it by more women graduating college and those types of things? No, because the narrative have been set about, especially about straight white men, but in general. So I don't know, but it seems odd to me that the data is telling us one thing and the actions are going in the other direction. So that's just another example of the many things they do.
Mm. I have a working theory in my mind. I think that movements, whether they be civil rights movements or helping disadvantaged people, disadvantaged gender, and all that, I have a theory that they don't know when to stop when their goal has been achieved, and ultimately they will get corrupt. I mean, I'm sure that there was a time where women actually falling back behind, and there was a time where black people were actually falling back. People were actually disadvantaged by the system, and it was legitimate for such organizations to have come up to address these issues such that conditions become better for everyone. But at a certain point, it's like a cancer. They don't know when to stop. They don't know. It's either they don't know when to stop, or they have to keep. It's a market. It's like a product that you have to keep reinventing the product so you can stay in business. Because if you admit now that your goal has been achieved, what happens to the structures that you built? You need to stay relevant for you to make more money. So you keep, even though they don't believe that this problem still exists, they have to somehow scream that the problem is still there so they can make a buck of it.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, your working theory is great. I mean, I think that either they get too big and they lose sight of what they were doing, or like you say, they just need to keep it going because there's a market for it. I don't remember the name of it, but one of the examples I use is there was an organization that was started to win support for gay marriage. And I don't know what this organization was. I forgot their name, but I used to always say kudos to them. I give them lots of credit. Whatever your views on gay marriage, that was the reason they were founded. When the Supreme Court passed gay marriage, they put up banners like "Yay!" and then they closed up shop and went away. They didn't pivot to something else. They didn't say, "Now let's get trans rights. Let's get gay rights," because they were like, "We already had rights. The only one we didn't have was that. We won. Have a nice day," and they walked away. Good for them.
Wow,
Most of them done. Most of us
that is an exception.
right.
That's a
Most of us
wonderful
let's find
exception. I don't
something
know
else to
how.
do.
I think we should find those people and ask them how they did it, how they didn't
Yeah,
become corrupt.
and pay
I
them to
mean,
teach other organizations to do that. Right.
yes, 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 yes.
Yeah,
So
it's a rarity. I mean, that's why I say kudos to them. Some have changed. Some charities have made millions of dollars to focus on a disease. The disease gets a cure. They don't go away. They say, okay, now let's focus on the next disease, right? But to keep the name or something, I don't know. But yeah, I definitely think that that is an anomaly and more people should do what they did. But I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, they actually did. We got to go. Have a nice day. They moved on. That is kudos to them, like I said. But yeah, most of the people do like you do. Let's just keep it going. In fact, some of them are so sinister that they'll, create the problem they're supposed to try to create more of the problem they're trying to fix, just so somebody can call them in. Oh, you need help? That's what we're here for.
so would I just say this is pure unbridled capitalism at its worst? I mean, at the center of it all, it seems to be people trying to make money off these things.
Well, I don't know if that. I think that's part of the unfair things to capitalism, where they get a complaint. Like most of the people who complain about, I mean, it's not perfect, of course, but most of but to me, the imperfection is its reach and how far it can go and how many people it can really help. And there's other things for that. There's going to be people that fall through the cracks of every system. But the majority of the people who have a problem with capitalism, when you ask them, well, what don't you like? And they say some things, and many of the things you'll agree. It's like, yeah, that thing is bad, but it's not capitalism. So I always joke, I say, you don't dislike capitalism, you don't like cheating, right? Because the system, like somebody tweeted something yesterday about capitalism doesn't love black people. And I was like, no, that's true. It doesn't. It also doesn't love white people, doesn't hate black people, doesn't hate
Exactly.
white people. It's capitalism. It's a system. It doesn't care about you, right?
Exactly.
It's the free exchange of products and whatever value you put on it, you're going to buy it for that. You're going to get that thing. So when someone puts their thumb on the scale, whether it be government, whether it be a crooked or greedy business owner, you can't say, see why capitalism is bad. No, that person is bad. We used to talk about the men who built America, your Cornelius Bennett and John Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie. And they did some great things and they innovated some things, and you had the Industrial Revolution. But you talk about gangster, that was a whole different types of gangster. So I always talk about Carnegie. So Carnegie, they would all flip because Vanderbilt was older. So he was first and he had all his power. And then Rockefeller came and Carnegie, and sometimes this one's got more power, and it kind of like ebbed and flowed. At the time when Carnegie was at the peak of his power, he was running the steel industry, and he had to move his stuff along the train, which was run by Vanderbilt. So basically, he's now Vanderbilt's biggest customer, and he just started making demands. It was like, you're going to do this and you're going to do this. So competitors would try to come up, and people in the free market will say, this capitalism is great because you can allow competitors. 100% true. Charles and Charles can decide who we want to buy from, and we can buy from whoever we want. But then what do you do when people like Carnegie get so big? So you're in the steel industry and I'm Carnegie, and we're both we need raw materials to make our product, right? You're starting out, you're going to be better customer service, and you're going to be a little bit cheaper. You're going to get the white glove service, and people are going to want to come to you. But Carnegie has so much money. He said, all right, cool. I want to buy your business. And you're like, no, I want to be the competitor. I don't want to buy your business. You can't force me to sell. So what Carnegie did was he bought all the raw materials because he had enough money. So he needed, 100,000 widgets, but there were 1 million on the market. So he just bought 1 million, so you couldn't buy any. All right, so a little shady, but that's not a knock on capitalism. That's Carnegie, right? So for Carnegie could go to Vanderbilt because he's got so much money and say, I want to do an extra run. And you only have 2 trains that can leave at this time. So I want to fill the other train up with my steel. Well, I can't because I got to, I need room for all my other customers that's moving different merchandise, furs and food or whatever. It's like, I don't care about them. You're going to move all my stuff and you're going to charge me 10% less. Or I'm going to do X. Vanderbilt needs the money. He succumbs to the pressure. And now all these other businesses suffer. Right. So that's why some people, even some conservatives, like we needed Teddy Roosevelt to come in and break up some of these companies. JP Morgan had his things that he did similar to that, but from the banking standpoint. But is that really capitalism being unfair on its own? Or is that people with power manipulating the system, right? When a company like Amazon, they say doesn't pay taxes, it's not capitalism. That's the government that created a structure where they can hire enough lawyers and accountants to not pay taxes. So I think it's unfair to capitalism when people say that's capitalism that let Jeff Bezos make so much money. No, it's people buying their stuff because he can get them products in 12 hours.
Yeah, I've always thought that it was unfair to define a system by its anomaly. Those features that people usually say it's capitalism, that's not actually capitalism. Those are the failures of the system, and you can't define the system by its failures.
Right.
And when you look at the free exchange of goods and services that capitalism offers, and people want to ascribe morality or immorality to an economic system, and I ask, why would you demand such of an economic system? I mean, it's a system for the free exchange of goods and services. Why would you want to ask whether capitalism is moral? Capitalism isn't moral, it isn't immoral, it is just a system. And like any system or any tool, it can be used for good, it can be used for bad. People can exploit it for different purposes. So even if you're looking for a socialist utopia, that's a tool too. I can't ask you whether socialism is moral or immoral. It's a system, and people can use it for good, people can use it for bad. I just feel that capitalism is not a perfect system, or at least it is one of the better systems, or so far it's the best system that we've got. So why do you want to destroy it?
Right. And the other thing is, and I always say that all the isms and all the systems are good if human nature wasn't flawed, if nobody would cheat, socialism would work. But the capitalism, I like to give people examples because it makes it easier to understand. So guy's got to get to the airport and he's walking, and the airport's, 15 miles away. And so he might not make it in time. He's got a long walk. It's going to take him quite a while to get there. So somebody could come along with a car and pick him up and get him there in 15 minutes. So that car did a great thing. Somebody could also do what the guy did in Wisconsin with the car, which is a really bad thing. I asked you, is that car moral or is it immoral? Was it acting immorally when it drove to the parade and then morally when it gave the guy a free lift to the airport? Right? Are you judging the people? Are you judging the car? Are you judging the people? Are you judging the system? The reason why capitalism works more than socialism, though, even in a situation where everybody's doing the right thing, there's no corruption, there's no Carnegie buying up everything. Neither would still be perfect, but the reason it still works better is because capitalism gives people incentives and socialism doesn't. So would you have an iPhone and the other technology that copied it along the way after if the people who came up with Steve Jobs wasn't in the company saying what's a way that we can make our products better and make more money? Because socialism and communism, want collectivism. So if communism wants the government to run everything, how can you ensure, even if it's fair, that the government is going to have people in it that knows how to do certain things? Like, will they know how to make a Tesla? Will they even know that there's a demand for it? Here's even better, whether you like it or not. Would the government, you're going to love this one, would the government have ever realized, you know what? I can get people to pay 3 to 5 times as much as they're paying now for coffee, even in the summer, and they will line up for it. The government, forget about cars and innovation, the government couldn't create Starbucks because somebody would tell him that it was crazy to think you could sell coffee for that much during the summer all year round and people would buy it. Maybe you can get an extra $2 or $3 in the winter, but nobody's paying $5 for coffee with whipped cream on it in the summer, you silly man. But they do, right? Nobody's doing that without the government. So even if, people were, human nature wasn't flawed and people only did the right thing, would they even have the capacity to build these things with the government, even if everybody was honest? Because the free market has people who come up with ideas, but they come up with ideas. We all come up with crazy ideas sitting there. Man, it'd be nice if we had a thing that you can pull and this would do this magic thing. But then we don't think we can make money with it, so we don't do it. But the guy says, I found a way that we can do that thing that most people probably think of, but I can find a way to make money to do it. And he goes to do it. If he has no financial incentives to do it, then he's not going to do it. So that adds an additional flaw to the socialism and communism that capitalism doesn't carry. So it's a shame that it's the reason. And lastly, I'll say this. It's the reason why people say they don't like capitalism. And they'll say, well, to be fair, they can say, well, I live in a system, so I got to function. But they're not just muddling their way through. They're anti-capitalists who are making large amounts of money, who are charging $20,000 for a speech, who are buying 4 homes, who are, selling books, who are doing all types of things, all kinds of things that are extremely capitalistic, who are starting their own business, who are asking money and accepting donations from major corporations that they hate. Then you should never take money from a major corporation if you hated capitalism. Where do you think they get their money from? So without them, you would have no money. And I said the reason is they don't really, they're not really anti-capitalist. So, we end up back there again.
Yeah, people really don't understand how inept the government is as doing things at all. People think.
But it's funny. They complain about the government all the time, right? They hate the DMV. They hate the post office. They say everything's slow. They don't like the police. They don't like their politicians, but they want government. And most blacks, because of the history, may have a good reason, are very, distrustful of the government. They say, man, but things are bad, right? Yeah. How do we fix it, government?
The same government that you don't trust, the same government
that's been incompetent, right? Exactly. But
it doesn't make any sense. And this reminds me of a quote by Milton Friedman, who said that if you put the government in charge of the Sahara Desert, there will be a shortage of sand, which is sort of true, because like in my country, we've seen the value of our naira depreciate with every intervention that the government does to it. Everything that the government does to try to shore up the naira, it just goes down. So if they hadn't done anything, it wouldn't be this bad. But it's their intervention that's making it worse. Exactly. So they just wake up one morning and bring out one policy, and in the next 2 weeks, you see it just goes down. So, and these are the same set of people that you want to put in charge of everything. You want to put in charge of your life. It's crazy. It's crazy. So
what are the people there? What do you all think about when you look at it from the outside? We don't get a chance often to talk about that, but I talk about being race crazy. It's America, so people all over the world, just like because they follow the fashion and the music and the movies, they also look at that. So they have to look at it. And what do they say? I mean, I don't know if you remember this, but when Trump was president, because people hated him so much, whatever your views on Trump, I didn't care about that. I just thought that what they were saying, because I wasn't a Trump fan, but I found myself defending them, and people would be like, "Why?" Because what they're saying is so dumb. And they said stuff like a good thing is like language, for instance. Like you got all these countries that speak all these different languages. A lot of them speak English anyway, but most of them who don't, they still teach, especially the middle class and the upper middle class people, English, because it's the international language of business. So business people all over the world speak English. So he was having some issues with immigration. and they were pressing the press secretary. It wasn't him. They were talking. No, they were talking to Stephen Miller. It wasn't the press secretary. And they're like, well, it seems like you're racist because you only want to allow people to immigrate here who speak English. I mean, no, who speak English. And when you say that, you're only talking about white people, as if the black people across the world don't speak English. And, all these people are like, but what do you mean? I mean, I know black people that live, everywhere, Jamaica, London, all these other places in Africa, Ghana, all these places, they all speak English. What do you mean that the only people who would be able to come here if you let people who speak English immigrate here, they'll just be Scandinavian people because those are the only people who speak English. Every country I've been to in the world, people spoke English. Now, maybe not the poorest people, but the people who are trying to come here spoke English. So I mean, some of them were white too, but it's just fascinating that those kind of narratives will be able to play and nobody will say anything, or they'll say things like, well, black people can't do this. And if you allow these people to come here, or when you talk about when Trump talked about certain countries, and whatever you think about that, I mean, there's a reason why people are coming to this. So when you from the outside watch this stuff and watch the reaction of the black people here, what do you all think?
It's really funny because black people would hate us Nigerians. I mean, I've been doing this, and I get the sense that they wouldn't really like our positions because our positions would be sort of very, very opposite. Take, for example, when Trump made the shithole comment about certain countries.
You laugh.
If you told that, if you told that to Nigerians, they'll be like, "Well, checks out." They're not going to get mad at that because they understand the reality of things. You understand? And sort of, the whole business with Trump got me in this part of what I'm doing right now because I had never heard of Trump prior to 2016, and when I saw the way CNN was talking about Trump, I was like, can an American politician actually say something like this? And he's still in politics. I mean, this is crazy. I'm sure he's going to get wiped out the next day. You understand? Mm-hmm. And then he's still strong in the race. I mean, I said, oh, there has to be something about this guy. So I started following up, and I found out that it was a total misrepresentation of Trump. There was a whole lot of misrepresentation from CNN and from the media and all that bullshit. You get? So in Nigeria, I can tell you for a fact that Trump was very, very popular with many Nigerians. There are those that still don't like him because of the media narrative. You understand?
Right. And those would probably be the people who didn't research to see if what they said about him was true.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, it's like the Mexican thing. Like it's like, yeah, I didn't like him because I'm a conservative. He's not really a conservative. I don't believe it. And I'm like, this, that, other, whatever. But I'm a really logical guy. I'm like, no, now I'm mad because he literally, like, right at the bat, they was like, well, I won't vote for him because he said all Mexicans are racist. Are racist. He did not say all. He said the people you are sending, many of them are X. Now that you can disagree with it, but you know what I used to always say to the people who said things about Trump? I said, let's assume he's the monster you say he is. I have one very simple question for you. Then why do you have to exaggerate it and make stuff up? If what he's doing is so bad, why won't you say, I can't vote for them? He said of the people who are coming in from Mexico, he said a lot of them are racist and they're not. Why not say that? Why not? He says all Mexicans are racist. Why not? Why do you have to say, well, look at what about Charlottesville? He said that they were good Nazis. No, he didn't.
He did say that.
Read the transcript. He said it 4 times that that's not what he said. And they still say, nope, that's not.
In that speech, he said, and I'm not talking about the white supremacists and the neo-Nazis and all that. Those are bad people.
He said it twice, and then they had the first question, they asked him again, and he answered the question again. So he said it like 3 times.
I mean, how do you miss something like that? How do you miss something like that?
And then sometimes when he did misspeak in his questions, it's because they asked the classic question, when did you stop beating your wife? There is no positive. If you say last week, that means you admitted you beat your wife. If you say you never beat her, they don't believe it because they're like, no, we already know you're beating her. When did you stop? Like, there's no answer to that. And those are the kind of questions they asked him. But I just was like, well, why are you making this stuff up? I mean, it's like but it wasn't just, we talk about Nigeria and Ghana and places like that because of the race factor and these people apply, but it was all over the country. They hated him because he went to Poland and people were like, they loved him in Poland because, Poland's a conservative country. It's like even most of Europe, which we look at as more liberal than America, they weren't as liberal as what America was becoming. So we were all like, the French and the Spanish are like this. I mean, Macron is like, you people are crazy. London is like, don't incorporate that stuff. I mean, watch it. You can read articles from black Britain saying, don't bring that crazy stuff here. I mean, when they started having BLM marches in the UK, Black Britons were shutting that crap down. Like in America, either they joined it or they were like, "Well, I'm afraid to say something." But when they did that in other countries, people were like, "Don't bring that crap over here." But we don't see that because that's the disadvantage of being, the superpower. So you see the world through your lens, and I mean, we all do. I do too, but I try to at least know what's going on in the world. But most people don't. It's like this is all they see. So when they say that, you talk about being Nigerian is a great example. So Nigerians who immigrate to America tend to do really well, and that's different because most of them aren't coming here as refugees, but Somalis do well too. But the funny thing is, so they'll say, we got this big ADOS thing, right? Blacks will say, we're talking about American descendants of slaves, we're different, right? So Jamaicans are doing well, the Nigerians are doing well, and Somalis are doing well, and they're Black. And when somebody says that, they'll say, yeah, but they're African, they're not, or they're Caribbean, they're not ADOS. But technically there's a difference, but that's not the problem. This is what I say. So to Blacks and to Africans, they can tell the difference. But you expect me to believe a racist white person who thinks all Black people are the same, walks around with his KKK mask and he hates Black people. Yet he's so nuanced and he's so hip and cosmopolitan that he can tell a Black Nigerian from a ADOS Black, so he'll pull a guy over at night and start to pull out his gun and say, "Oh, no, you're Nigerian. You can go ahead. Go. Boy, I thought you were ADOS, boy. Ooh, I was about to shoot you. Go ahead. You go ahead. Have a nice day." But somehow he can tell the difference. It's like the cops are hunting us down. Here's another one I like to use. So the cops are hunting Blacks, hunting them. They're out to get them. They want them shot because they're racist. Yet every time they catch one and one becomes high-profile shooting, whether it's right or wrong, I'm not defending the cop. I'm just questioning how they're so lucky in their racism that it's always someone with a lone criminal record. Now they'll say they'll try to twist it. And I won't allow it. They'll say, "Well, what are you saying? Deserve to be shot?" No, I want to know why the racist white who doesn't know Black people that well is good enough never to stop a Black guy who doesn't have a lone record. So every time he shoots somebody, or every time he I can't breathe, is somebody that's been arrested 35 times. George Floyd, Eric Garner, everybody. You go down the list. So why is that? It's not the question of whether it should have happened. It's the question of how the white racist is so good that he can tell the difference between, the successful non-ADOS Black and the other Black. They have no answer. It's because they can't tell. It's because they're not out hunting Black people. That's the answer, but they don't want to give you that answer. So they'll just come up with, well, the stats say that the system is this, blah, 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 blah. Still not an answer to my question. You're telling me about the shooting. I don't care about the shooting. I want to know why day in and day out when the white guy is attacking the Black guy and he's shooting the guy and it's on the TV and you're watching on CNN, that guy up there, Freddie Gray, who's the guy in Kenosha, Jacob Blake, they always have a criminal record. Always. No, I guess white racists are just lucky.
Yeah. So we're going to just wrap up and say like 5 minutes, but I'd really love to have you back again because I have to attend to something very, very urgent now. Mm-hmm. Great conversation. But just before we go, I wanted to put this in. Who is more Black, the Nigerian or the African American who has some of who have European ancestry, some of who have Native American ancestry?
If you ask them, they'll say them because you didn't go through the struggle.
No. I mean, to a racist white person.
Nigeria. White person. Oh, definitely Nigeria.
Of course, Nigerian is more Black, so
we get to shoot him first.
Yeah, you get to shoot him first, but how are you skipping that? What's happening there? That's you skip the people that are supposedly should be more racist too, and then you just attack those that are even closer to you kin-wise because
and only the ones with the record. Remember the ones with the record. Somehow they can figure out whether you went to Columbia Law School just by looking. No, you're educated. You've never broken the law. You go ahead. Find me somebody in a gang. I'm that good. I can just look at the Blacks. Nope, Nigerian. Nope, educated. Nope, never broke the law. Ha! A 5-time felon.
Charles Love, it was wonderful. It's wonderful having you in this conversation today. I wish it were longer for now, but I really have to attend to a pressing issue right now. Okay. So I would love to have you come back soon, so we can there are a whole ton of other questions that I want to ask you that we can cover right now. So thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate the conversation today. So until next time, just stay awesome. Thanks.
We'll talk soon.
All right, bye. All right, guys, thanks for the live stream. I have to go now. Thank you for watching. Bye.